Welcome back to Old Tech Bloke channel, OTB, or me. I've issued a little bit of a channel update earlier, and I promised to do a review video that was, I think, a little bit special. As you can see from the title, it's going to be about Endeavour OS. I keep hearing the name Endeavour OS over the last week or so, and I'd never heard of it at all before, but apparently it's what has emerged from Antigos, which of course has now ceased. And from what I can gather, looking at the Endeavour OS website, they've just got to their first stable release. It's Arch with minimal customization, or so it's promised, and with a Calamares installer. Well, excellent. I mean, if we just whip over to their website, which you can now see on the screen, it says, "Are you that distro hopper that's always been curious to try Arch Linux, but aren't confident enough to do the install process and dealing with bleeding edge releases after install? Or are you already familiar with Arch Linux, but looking for an express install with a system that's close to your beloved distro?" Well, okay. I've ran Arch Linux quite a few times over the last couple of years. I must have installed it more than a dozen times. The Arch way. I've installed Manjaro as well to have a look at that, but that was a little bit too customized for my liking. So I prefer to plain Arch. I haven't really tried anything else. I've never tried Antigos. And the Arch install itself, although installing the Arch way is recommended, if I'm honest, was it a learning experience? No. It's just a case of following the wiki and copying and pasting text. It's straightforward enough, but it's quite long-winded. So if Endeavour operating system can give you a pretty vanilla Arch without going through the lengthy process of getting your system up and running, I'm all for that. And it'll give people who perhaps aren't confident on the command line an opportunity to have a look at what a vanilla Arch system is, and to learn Pacman and to learn how to manage the system. But it's a new distro. It's very new. At the moment, apparently it just, what they call the offline installer, just installs a plain XFCE desktop. But that doesn't really matter. If it installs some sort of graphical environment in Arch, you can then take it over yourself and do what you would normally do in terms of installing your preferred desktop environments and customizing it to taste. But is it any good? Does it do what it says on the tin? Let's have a look-see. So let's get on and look at Endeavour operating system. You should see on the screen in front of you that I fired up VirtualBox on my Debian desktop. I'm not quite sure how this is going to go because Debian is installed on an SSD, which is in turn connected by USB 3. So whether or not it's fast enough, I suppose we'll find out. But anyway, I've downloaded the first stable version of Endeavour. I've created a virtual machine. I've hooked it up to the Endeavour ISO. I've given it 8 gig of my 16 gig of memory, 2 threads of my i5 processor, and just to complicate matters, even though VirtualBox's UEFI implementation is a little bit iffy to say the least, I've set it to UEFI boot. Because if this goes well, I will probably install it on a hard drive, and I want to see how it copes with UEFI. We may get a few little problems though with using this on VirtualBox, but we'll find that out as we go. So let's hit start and crack on. Do I want to switch to scale mode? Yes, I do, please. Okay. Endeavour OS, EUFI USB. Fine. Now, rather than seeing the boot messages pass by, what we're actually seeing now is a blank screen. And this would have worried me greatly. However, I know from doing this before, just to check that the ISO booted, that this is probably due to VirtualBox's incomplete UEFI implementation, because as long as we just wait, it seems to catch up with itself and it starts to boot. I have, by the way, tried to boot it in standard BIOS mode and it boots straight away without a problem. So I'm pretty sure this is a VirtualBox issue. But if you do try it in UEFI mode and you see this black screen where it just says running and nothing else, it will eventually start, and you see it doing that now. Creating a slice of system DHC PCD. Okay. Not quite sure what that means, other than it's trying to get an IP address, I presume. And I'm hoping at this point we are now going to boot into the live version, which we are, which is great. So the resolution leaves a bit to be desired at the moment, but not a problem. You get a little prompt here saying read information offline or info on our website. I'm just going to quit from that. I am going to see if I can do something about the resolution. Settings, I suppose. Display. Yep. Let's set it to 1680 by 1050. That looks better. It's not full screen mode. We could try that and see if it works. No, don't like that. It's better actually just scaled. I see what the problem is already. The resolution's gone. So let me reset that. It hasn't actually. So let's just scale it again. Scale mode. There we go. We've got it back. Let me get rid of these annoying little overlays that come up. So yes, you can still see the menu of Debian behind this, but I think that's probably the best we're going to get in OBS at the moment. So this is Endeavour OS. Okay, it's quite a nice looking desktop. I believe it's XFCE. It's themed slightly with its own wallpaper, I presume. Yeah. There are a selection of wallpapers that we can choose from. I'm not sure that these are anything other than the default XFCE, but that's absolutely fine. What have we got in the menu? I think this is actually the whisker menu, is it? Yes, it is. Okay. Few accessories. Mousepad. Light GDM GTK greeter. Software tokens. Okay. Presume they're for setting up a VPN. Your standard task manager, XFburn. A few development tools there. As a desktop user, I would never use them. Graphics, Ristretto, but no GIMP. Internet. Okay, we've got Firefox and transmission. That's fine. Multimedia. Parole Media Player. Never heard of it, but that's fine as well. No Office. It was clearly stated that they don't package this with LibreOffice, so that's fine. And then we have our settings menu, which from what I can see is pretty much the standard XFCE settings. A few system apps there. We've got gparted, dconf editor, htop. There's the install system icon. KDE partition manager. Not quite sure why you would want that if you already have gparted, but that's fine. Sensor viewer, task manager, Thunar, and the XFCE terminal. Okay, so all good. It's booted in UEFI mode. Let's see if it installs and see what the install system looks like. So this, I believe, is the installer, and it's using Calamares. So that should make this a fairly easy installation. Okay, let's just set our language to British English. Click next. Okay, it's not picked up our location, so I'll just click there. Europe, London, yeah, that's absolutely fine. System language set to British English. Numbers and date locale set to British English. Okay, no problem. UK keyboard set by default. What do I want it to do? Right, well, I can already see it's picked up EFI, so that's good news. I was installing another operating system the other day in VirtualBox, Peppermint Linux, and it didn't seem to pick up that the system was booting in EFI mode, so I had a few issues with that, which I'll probably talk about at some point. What do I want to do? I just want to erase the disk and get on with it. Do we need a swap partition? No, we don't need a swap partition. Do I want to encrypt the system? No, certainly not. Let's just hit next and see what happens. What's my name? OTB. Okay, it fills out all the other fields. Enter a password. Repeat it. Do I want to log in automatically? No, I don't. Use the same password for the admin account, so it's setting up a root account. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea to me. And let's see what it's doing. Okay, so it's creating a new GPT partition table on the virtual drive hard disk. It's creating a 300 meg FAT32 partition. So that's for the EFI system, the ESP partition. And the remainder is being given over to root. And it's mounting the EFI partition on boot/EFI. Okay, looks right to me so far. Let's hit install and see what happens. It's about to make changes. Yeah, that's great. Am I afraid of the terminal? Sometimes. I think most of us are. So that took, all in all, less than 10 minutes to get to the end. So if this results in a bare bones Arch installation, that would be brilliant. I really don't care about it not having many default apps. I really don't care about it not being customized to death, because I can do all of that myself. What this does, or what I hope this does, is just give me a quick install of a base system. So let's hit done and see what happens. Okay. It's taking, oh no, I was going to say it's taking a little while, but actually it seemed to boot quite quickly. And let's boot into the system. Unread news. Okay. I'm not really interested in that, but never mind. Update requires manual intervention. The LibBloom Package Pro was missing a so name link. This has been fixed, so the upgrade will need... If you get an error, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Right. So I'm getting lots of little notifications at the moment. which is fine, I suppose. I'm just going to minimize that one just in case I need it later. So let's have a look at what we've got. So we've got the terminal, our Thunar file browser, and presumably that's Firefox. Indeed, that's Firefox. Okay, all good. Oops, we don't want to do that. Everything we've already seen. Let's just again look at our display. Let's set it up to 1680 by 1050. That looks a little bit better to me. Okay, what's over here? Sound, which is already set up. It's retained the fact that I set it up for UK English. I've no idea what this is. Right, so this is the updates that are available. Okay, well, before we actually go and put any updates in here, I believe it's already got Yay as an AUR helper. I don't know if this is a particular, if this is all, oh right, okay. So this is its own little upgrader. So check for updates. One package updated from the AUR and one package not found in AUR. Right. I think the best thing that we can do here is actually to run an upgrade and see what happens. So let me just have a brief look at the system and I'll come back in a second and we'll run the upgrade and see if it works. So before we update, let's have a look and let's see how customized this system is. So let's have a look at the Pacman configuration file. I'm assuming sudo's installed or configured, but we'll find that out in a minute. Okay, so standard options here. Let's have a look. I'll move down the file. It includes core, extra, community, and I see multi-lib is already enabled by default, which is a good thing. And right at the bottom of the file, they have their own repository. So everything looks pretty standard there. So let's refresh the mirror list and see if we can do an update. Let me just increase the size slightly so you can see what I'm doing. So sudo should be installed, or I'm presuming sudo should be installed. Oops. If I can get my typing correct. It's now synchronizing the package database. It's first starting with core, then extra, then community, then multi-lib, and it's giving me all the packages that can be upgraded from here. So, do I want to proceed with the installation? Yeah, I think I do. There's a few things there. VirtualBox guest utilities are there. It looks like new Linux headers. Is there a new kernel? I can't see from just looking, but let's proceed with the installation anyway. And once it's finished, I'll reboot and we'll come back. Right, so the installation's installed and it rebooted straight back in. I believe Yay is installed as well, and Yay is an AUR helper. Actually, I don't need sudo, but let's just see if we can run Yay right off the bat. It uses the same syntax as Pacman. It will ask me for the password should I need it. I see it's going over to the Endeavour OS system, resolving dependencies, looking for conflicted packages, and it wants to update itself. Good as far as I'm concerned. Now, packages to upgrade, to not upgrade. Well, we'll upgrade everything, so I'll just hit enter. Diffs to show. No, I'm not interested in that. I probably should be, but we're doing a quick thing here. And that's it. Yay's been updated. So we're now running with a fully updated system. What I want to do to Endeavour OS, though, is I want to go a little bit further. I want to now install my preferred operating system, which is Mate. So that should be fairly straightforward. Let me just have a quick look. I'm looking here at the Mate installation instructions on the Endeavour OS wiki at the moment, and this is what it's telling me to do. Sudo Mate extra system. In fact, let me launch the web browser here, and then I can just copy and paste everything in. Endeavour OS. There we go. Let's go to the wiki. How to install desktop environments, offline install. Deepin, Budgie, Cinnamon, Mate, Plasma. Okay. Well, I want Mate. Single command. Pretty much the same command, well, exactly the same command as you would run on a standard system. Enter a selection, default all. Enter a selection, default all. Proceed with installation, yes. Right, so let it again get on and install Mate, and we'll come back when the system's rebooted. So, that didn't take long at all. I rebooted, and it rebooted in seconds. No problem at all. So we're at the login screen now. Rather than the XFCE session, let's change to Mate. Let's see what happens. Okay, let's sort out our resolution again. Now that we've rebooted. Oops, wrong one. Not appearance. It's displays. Let's move up 1680 to 1050. Apply. Keep that configuration. Close it. And we have in front of us exactly the same version of Mate in terms of look and appearance that you would get with a plain vanilla Arch installation if you install Mate on top of it. It's clearly got rid of all of the Endeavour OS branding, which is on XFCE, and I'll be honest, that suits me. What have we got in here? We have all the standard Mate applications and XFCE. That's looking good, and that's now ready for me to customize to my liking. I'm really quite impressed. I know that this is a really bare bones desktop with very few applications, but that's what I was hoping it was. So far, to me, booting it from VirtualBox, it looks like this is pretty much just like Arch. No real difference. The Mate terminal, Okay, great. Let's just check a few things. Let's have a look at what it's put in F-stab. Actually, we can bring that down a bit. So, right, it's set up the EFI partition there, and it's set up the root partition, which is great. Right, I'd set up a 20 gig partition for root. It's used 5.7 gig in total after I've installed Mate, which is again pretty good. I'm impressed. I may well install this on one of my hard drives and we'll see from there. But okay, let's have a quick chat. So that's Endeavour operating system, or sorry, Endeavour OS. First impressions? I think for a first stable release, it's looking good. It's a quick way of getting a relatively lightly customised version of Arch on your desktop or your laptop, and it then allows you to take over as you would with a normal Arch install. There are some things that I'm not keen on. I don't particularly like the little graphical package manager. I tend to use something called Per Mac, but that's fine. I'll install that myself. I like Yay anyway. I always install that as an AUR helper. The fact that it's installed from the outset is brilliant. It saves me having to download it from a Git repo and compile it. Not that that takes very long anyway. And you saw yourself that updates and installing desktop environments is straightforward. There's a lot of talk about Arch because its bleeding edge can be quite unstable. Up until probably about a month ago, I'd run a version of Arch on my old desktop, and I'd run it for about a year. Never had a problem, not one problem. I used to update it once a week and it was absolutely fine. I had the odd issue with some of the latest kernels that came down the line, but I always installed the LTS kernel as well, the long-term support kernel, so that could get me out of trouble if the system wouldn't boot. It's worth having a look. From what I've seen so far, I'd recommend it. I think during the course of the week, it's going to get a place on a 480 gig brand new SanDisk SSD that I've got in my little dock at the moment, and I'll play around with it and I'll update you in future weeks. But I hope you've enjoyed this, everyone. It's nice to know that there's more than just a handful of people watching this, and I'll see you next week.